What happens when one of the most famous figures in the world walks onto a daytime talk show stage and within minutes turns a friendly interview into an explosive battleground? It only took 34 seconds of heated words for Prince Harry to go from royal guest to being escorted off the Loose Women's set after a shocking confrontation with host Denise Welch that left the entire studio in stunned silence. The studio lights were bright that morning as the Loose Women panel settled into their seats. Denise Welch sat in the center, her warm smile radiating the kind of approachable energy that had made her a beloved figure on British television for years. The audience buzzed with anticipation. Prince Harry was scheduled to appear, and the excitement in the room was palpable. When he walked out, the applause was deafening. He wore a casual blazer and jeans, waving to the crowd with that familiar smile. Denise stood to greet him, extending her hand. He shook it briefly, barely making eye contact before taking his seat. The first sign that something was off. Denise opened with her signature warmth. "Welcome, welcome. We are absolutely thrilled to have you here today. How are you feeling?" Harry leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Yeah, fine. Let's just get through this, shall we?" The audience laughed nervously, unsure if he was joking. Denise maintained her smile, ever the professional. "Of course, we have so much to talk about. Your recent projects, your family, your new initiatives. Where would you like to start?" "Wherever you want," Harry said, his tone flat. "You're the one asking the questions." There was an awkward pause. The other panelists exchanged glances. Denise pressed forward, determined to make this work. "Well, let's talk about your new documentary series. It's been getting quite a bit of attention. What inspired you to take on this project?" Harry sighed audibly, leaning back further in his chair. "Do we really need to do the whole press circuit thing?" "I've answered this question about 100 times already." Denise's smile wavered slightly, but she kept her composure. Her years of experience told her to push through. "I understand you've been busy with interviews, but our audience would love to hear about it in your own words. Many of them might not have heard you discuss it before." "In my own words?" Harry repeated, mockingly. He glanced at the audience, then back at Denise. "Right. Well, in my own words, I did it because I wanted to. There. Happy?" The audience had gone quiet now. The energy in the room shifted from excitement to discomfort. You could hear people shifting in their seats. Denise glanced at her notes, clearly trying to steer things back on track, trying to salvage what was quickly becoming a disaster. "Let's talk about something different then. Your charitable work has always been so important to you. The initiatives you've started have helped so many people. Can you tell us about what you're currently focused on?" Harry let out a short, bitter laugh. "You know what? I'm focused on not being interrogated on live television. Is that charitable enough for you?" A few audience members gasped quietly. This was not the friendly interview they had expected. Denise's professional mask slipped for just a moment, a flash of frustration crossing her face before she regained control. "I'm not interrogating you. These are simply questions we prepared because we thought you'd want to share these things with people who care about your work, people who look up to you, people who care." Harry scoffed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You mean people who want to gossip and tear apart everything I say? Let's not pretend this is about caring. It's about entertainment. It's about ratings." Denise took a measured breath. "Our show has always been about genuine conversation. We've had countless guests who've shared their stories here, and we've treated every single one with respect. That's what we're trying to do with you." "Trying," Harry emphasized. "That's the key word, isn't it? You're trying. Well, maybe some people don't want to be your next story." One of the other panelists, attempting to diffuse the tension, tried to jump in with a supportive tone. "I think what Denise is trying to say is that we're genuinely interested in what you're doing. We're all supporters here. We admire the work you do." Harry turned to her sharply, his eyes cold. "I don't remember asking for your input, and I certainly didn't ask for your admiration." The room went completely silent. Even the crew members behind the cameras seemed to freeze. This had gone from uncomfortable to openly hostile. Denise straightened in her chair, her voice taking on a firmer tone as her patience began to wear thin. "Okay, let's take a step back here. We invited you on the show because we respect you and wanted to give you a platform to discuss things that matter to you. If you're not comfortable with that, if this isn't what you want, we can wrap this up right now." "Oh, so now you're threatening to cut the interview short?" Harry's voice rose, his face reddening. Typical. The moment someone doesn't play along with your little game, doesn't dance to your tune, you want to shut it down. You want to control the narrative. "That's not what I said at all," Denise replied, her patience clearly wearing thin. "I'm trying to have a respectful conversation with you, but you've been hostile since the moment you sat down." Harry stood up abruptly. "Hostile? I'm hostile? You drag me onto this show, ask me invasive questions, and then act like I'm the problem?" Denise remained seated, her voice steady but firm. "Nobody dragged you here. You agreed to come. And the questions I've asked are standard interview questions. Nothing invasive about asking what inspired your documentary or what charity work you're doing." "Standard questions," Harry muttered, pacing now. "Everyone thinks they have the right to know every detail of my life. What I'm doing, where I'm going, who I'm talking to. It never ends." "I understand that public life can be challenging," Denise said, her voice softening slightly. "But that doesn't give you the right to come on our show and treat us with disrespect. We've been nothing but welcoming to you." Harry stopped pacing and pointed at her. "Welcoming? You call this welcoming? Sitting here with your fake smiles and your scripted questions, pretending you actually care?" The audience gasped. Denise stood up now, her expression serious. "My smile isn't fake, and neither is my intention. I've hosted this show for years, and I've interviewed hundreds of people with grace and respect. I extended that same courtesy to you, and you've thrown it back in my face. Maybe I'm just tired of playing the game." Harry shot back, "Tired of pretending that shows like this aren't just looking for sound bites to twist and sell. Then why?" "Did you agree to come?" Denise asked, her voice rising slightly. "If you think so little of what we do, why waste your time and ours?" Harry didn't answer immediately. He looked around the studio, at the cameras, at the audience, at the other panelists who sat frozen in their seats. "I don't know," he finally said. "Maybe I shouldn't have." Denise took a breath, clearly trying to regain control of the situation. "Look, if you're having a difficult day, we can reschedule. We can do this another time when you're feeling more up to it. But what I won't tolerate is you coming here and being rude to me and my colleagues." "Rude?" Harry laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about rude? How about the press hounding my family every single day? How about the constant speculation and lies? That's rude. This," he gestured around the studio, "this is nothing. I'm not the press," Denise said firmly. "I'm a talk show host trying to do my job. And right now, my job is to have a civil conversation with you. If you can't do that, then we have a problem." Harry's face reddened. "Your job is to exploit people's stories for ratings. Don't act like you're above it all." "That's enough," Denise said, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "I've been patient. I've been understanding. But I will not stand here and be accused of exploitation when all I've done is try to give you a respectful platform." "A platform you control," Harry countered. "A platform where you get to edit and manipulate everything to fit your narrative." "This is live television," Denise reminded him, her voice sharp now. "There's no editing. What you say is what goes out, and right now, what's going out is you insulting me and this show for no good reason." Harry stepped closer to the panel desk. "No good reason? You have no idea what it's like to have your entire life dissected by people like you." "People like me?" Denise's voice was incredulous now. "I've been in this industry for decades. I know exactly what scrutiny feels like, but I've never used it as an excuse to treat people poorly." "Of course you'd say that," Harry said dismissively. "You're on the other side of it. You're the one asking the questions, not answering them." "I've answered plenty of difficult questions in my career," Denise replied. "About my personal life, my struggles, my family, and I've done it with dignity, something you seem to be lacking right now." The audience was completely silent. Even the cameras seemed to hold still, capturing every moment of the escalating confrontation. The other panelists looked like they wanted to disappear into their chairs. Harry's jaw clenched. "You think you know me. You think you know what I've been through. You don't know anything." "You're right," Denise said, her voice softer but still firm. "I don't know everything about your life. That's why I'm asking questions. That's what an interview is. But you've turned this into something ugly, and I won't be a part of it anymore." "Good," Harry said. "Then we're done here." "Yes, we are," Denise agreed. She turned to the camera. "I apologize to our viewers. We were hoping for a thoughtful conversation today, but unfortunately, that's not possible under these circumstances." Harry grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. "You're making me out to be the villain here." "You're doing that all on your own," Denise said quietly. "I didn't attack you. I didn't insult you. I asked you about your work, and you responded with hostility and accusations. That's not on me." "Whatever helps you sleep at night," Harry muttered as he started to walk off the set. Denise called after him. You know what? You came here with an attitude, and you've shown everyone watching exactly who you are right now. That's not my fault. Harry spun around. Who I am? You don't get to define who I am. You don't get to judge me based on one conversation. I'm not defining anything, Denise said, her voice steady despite the tension. You've defined yourself through your actions here today. Every word, every eye roll, every dismissive comment, that's all you. Harry took a step back toward the panel. You're twisting this around, making it seem like I'm the bad guy when all I did was refuse to play your little game. What game? Denise asked, her frustration evident now. Asking you about your documentary? Asking about your charity work? Those aren't games. Those are topics you presumably care about. Topics you've spoken about publicly before. Not like this, Harry insisted. Not in this kind of environment where everything is scrutinized and picked apart. That's literally what you signed up for when you agreed to do this interview, one of the other panelists interjected. We sent you the topics beforehand. Your team approved everything. Harry glared at her. My team doesn't speak for me. Clearly, Denise said dryly. Because if they did, they'd probably advise you not to come on national television and act like this. Act like what exactly? Harry challenged. Act like someone who's tired of being treated like a commodity? Like a product to be packaged and sold to your audience? No one is treating you like a commodity, Denise replied firmly. We invited you here as a guest. As someone we thought had interesting things to share, we prepared thoughtful questions. We created a welcoming environment. And you've rejected all of it from the moment you walked through that door. Harry laughed, but there was no humor in it. Welcoming environment? Is that what you call it when you sit there with your cameras and your microphones, ready to broadcast every single word I say to millions of people? That's what a television interview is, Denise said, her patience visibly thinning. That's what you agreed to. If you wanted a private conversation, you should have suggested coffee, not a live talk show. Maybe I made a mistake, Harry admitted, though his tone remained defensive. Maybe I shouldn't have trusted that this would be any different from all the other interviews. Different how? Denise pressed. What were you expecting? What could we have done differently to make you feel comfortable? Harry didn't answer right away. He looked around the studio again, at the faces staring back at him, the audience members who had been so excited to see him, the crew members just trying to do their jobs, the other panelists who had been nothing but supportive. I don't know, he finally said, his voice quieter but still edged with resentment. Maybe there's nothing you could have done. Maybe I'm just tired of all of it. Then take a break, Denise suggested, her voice softening slightly. Step back from interviews and public appearances. Focus on your work without the publicity, but don't come on shows and take your frustrations out on people who haven't done anything wrong. You think it's that simple? Harry asked. Just step back and everything goes away? I think it's better than what you're doing right now, Denise replied honestly, which is alienating people who could be your allies, people who genuinely want to hear what you have to say. Harry shook his head. You don't get it. You can't just step back. They don't let you. The press, the public, everyone. They feel entitled to know everything, to have access to every part of your life. I understand that must be incredibly difficult, Denise acknowledged. I can't imagine living with that level of scrutiny. But I'm not the press. I'm not paparazzi hiding in bushes or tabloids making up stories. I'm a talk show host who asked you about your work. There's a difference. The difference is you do it with a smile, Harry said bitterly. You make it seem friendly and casual, but it's all the same. It's all part of the machine. Denise stood up straighter, her eyes meeting his directly. You know what? I do smile. I do try to make my guests comfortable, because that's called being professional. That's called treating people with respect. And if you can't see the difference between that and actual invasive journalism, then I feel sorry for you. The words hung in the air. Harry's jaw clenched. Don't feel sorry for me. Too late, Denise said. I already do. Because you're standing here on this stage, surrounded by people who wanted to give you a platform, and all you can see is enemies. That's sad. I don't need your pity, Harry snapped. It's not pity, Denise corrected. It's sympathy. There's a difference. Pity is condescending. Sympathy is understanding that someone is struggling. And you clearly are. You don't know anything about what I'm struggling with, Harry said, his voice rising again. You're right. I don't, Denise agreed. Because every time I've tried to ask you a question, you've either dismissed it or attacked me for asking. So how could I possibly know? Harry had no response to Pramond. That he stood there, his anger seemingly deflating into something else. Exhaustion, perhaps, or resignation. "Look," Denise said, her tone gentler now. "I don't want this to end badly, I really don't. But I also can't continue this interview when you're clearly not in the right headspace for it. So here's what I'm suggesting. You can leave now with whatever dignity you have left, or you can sit back down and we can try to have an actual conversation. Your choice." For a moment, it seemed like Harry might actually consider the offer. He looked at the empty chair, then back at Denise. But whatever internal calculation he was making came up on the side of leaving. "I'm done here," he said finally. "I'm not judging you based on one conversation," Denise said, her voice rising again. "I'm judging you based on how you've treated me and everyone in this studio for the past several minutes. You've been condescending, you've been rude, and you've been completely unreasonable." "Unreasonable?" Harry's voice was loud now, echoing through the studio. His face was flushed, his hands gesturing wildly. "I'm unreasonable for not wanting to be part of your media circus? For not wanting to sit here and pretend that everything is fine? Then leave," Denise shouted, her composure finally breaking. Her voice carried across the studio, silencing even the smallest whispers. "If you hate it so much, if you think we're all so terrible, then walk out that door and don't come back. No one is forcing you to be here." The studio fell into shocked silence. The audience sat frozen, hardly daring to breathe. The other panelists looked like they wished they could disappear. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the meltdown. Harry stared at Denise, his face a mixture of anger and something else. Surprise, maybe. Shocked that someone had actually stood up to him like this. For a moment, it seemed like he might say something else, might fire back with another accusation. Instead, he shook his head slowly, grabbed his jacket more forcefully this time, and walked toward the exit with quick, angry strides. One of the producers rushed over from the side of the stage, clipboard in hand, trying to intervene. "Wait, please, can we just talk about this for a moment?" Harry brushed past him without a word, without even a glance, his jaw set and his eyes fixed on the exit. The cameras followed his entire journey, capturing every step, every expression, as he disappeared through the studio doors with a force that made them swing on their hinges. Denise stood at the panel desk, her chest rising and falling with deep breaths. She looked at the camera, her expression a mixture of frustration and sadness. "I'm sorry you all had to witness that," she said to the viewers. "We prepare for many things on this show, but we never expect a guest to come on and treat us with such disrespect." The other panelists finally found their voices, offering words of support. One of them reached over and squeezed Denise's hand. "You handled that beautifully," she said softly. Denise nodded, but her eyes were still on the door where Harry had exited. "I really thought we could have a good conversation today. I thought he wanted to share his story." "You gave him every opportunity," another panelist assured her. "You were more than fair." Denise turned back to the camera, gathering herself. "We're going to take a quick break," she announced. "When we come back, we'll continue with the rest of our show. Thank you for your patience." As the show cut to commercial, the studio remained tense. Crew members whispered to each other, audience members sat in stunned silence, and Denise stood at the desk, processing what had just happened. When they returned from break, Denise addressed the situation one more time. "Before we move on, I want to say something about what just occurred. In all my years of hosting this show, I've interviewed people from all walks of life. Some interviews are easy, some are challenging, but they're all built on a foundation of mutual respect. When that respect isn't present, when a guest comes onto the show with the intention of being combative rather than conversational, it makes it impossible to have the kind of dialogue our viewers deserve." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I don't know what Prince Harry was going through today. I don't know what pressures he's under or what frustrations he's dealing with. But I do know that taking those feelings out on people who are simply trying to do their jobs isn't fair. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to my colleagues, and it's not fair to all of you watching at home who tuned in hoping to learn something meaningful." The audience applauded, a show of support that seemed to give Denise strength. She smiled, a genuine smile this time. "Thank you. That means a lot. And you know what? We're going to move on and have a great rest of the show, because that's what we do here. We don't let one difficult moment define us." And they did move on. The rest of the episode proceeded with discussions about current events, lighthearted banter, and the kind of engaging conversation that Loose Women was known for. But the tension from earlier hung in the air, a reminder of how quickly things could go wrong when respect wasn't present. Throughout the remainder of the show, Denise maintained her professionalism. She laughed with her co-hosts, engaged with the audience, and never once mentioned Harry again. But those who knew her well could see the toll the confrontation had taken. During the final segment, one of the other panelists brought up the topic indirectly. You know, we talk a lot on this show about how to handle difficult people in our lives. And I think we all saw a masterclass today in how to stand your ground while maintaining your dignity. Denise looked touched by the comment. That's very kind of you to say. I think the key is knowing your worth and not letting someone else's bad behavior make you question it. We all have difficult days, but that doesn't give us permission to lash out at others. Another panelist nodded in agreement. Exactly. And what struck me about the whole situation was how you kept trying to bring it back to a respectful place. You gave chance after chance for things to turn around. I did, Denise confirmed, because I genuinely believe most people, when given the opportunity, will choose to be decent. But sometimes, for whatever reason, they're not in a place where they can do that. And when that happens, all you can do is protect your own peace and set boundaries. The conversation resonated with the audience, many of whom nodded along or applauded at various points. It was clear that what had started as a disastrous interview segment had become an unexpected lesson in self-respect and professional boundaries. As the show wrapped up, Denise addressed the camera one final, "Thank you all for sticking with us through what was certainly an unexpected turn of events today. We come to work every day hoping to bring you interesting conversations and a bit of fun. Today didn't go as planned, but I hope it at least showed you that we're real people here, dealing with real situations and doing our best to handle them with grace." The audience gave her a standing ovation. Denise's eyes glistened slightly as she waved goodbye. "See you tomorrow, loves. We'll have a much better show, I promise." As the credits rolled and the studio lights dimmed, crew members approached Denise with words of encouragement and support. She thanked each of them, still processing the whirlwind of emotions from the confrontation. One of the producers pulled her aside. "Are you okay? That was intense." Denise nodded slowly. "I'm okay. Just disappointed, I suppose. I really did want to have a good conversation with him. I thought we could talk about meaningful things." "You handled it perfectly," the producer assured her. "You stood up for yourself and for the show. That took courage." "It shouldn't have required courage," Denise replied. "It should have just been a normal interview. But I suppose that's the world we live in now. Everyone's so defensive, so ready to attack." "Not everyone," the producer reminded her. "Most of your guests are wonderful. This was an exception." "I know," Denise said. "I know that. It just rattled me more than I expected." Back in the studio audience, people were still discussing what they had witnessed. Some were shocked, others were supportive of Denise. "She didn't deserve that," one audience member said to her friend. "She was nothing but kind to him." "I know," her friend agreed. "He came in with an axe to grind." "She held her own, though," another person chimed in. "Didn't let him walk all over her." The consensus was clear. Denise had handled an impossible situation with as much grace as could be expected, and Harry had revealed a side of himself that left many people questioning their perception of him. In the days following the incident, the confrontation became the talk of the television world. Clips circulated online, think pieces were written, and everyone had an opinion about what had transpired. But on that day, in that studio, the moment was raw and unfiltered. It was a collision of two people, two perspectives, and two very different approaches to handling conflict. Denise had tried to build a bridge, to create space for dialogue and understanding. Harry had burned that bridge before it could even be completed. The lights in the studio finally went dark, and the audience filed out, still buzzing with energy. The crew packed up equipment, the panelists gathered their belongings, and slowly, the studio returned to its quiet state. Denise sat alone at the panel desk for a moment, the weight of the day settling on her shoulders. She had been in television long enough to know that moments like this would be dissected and analyzed for weeks to come. But in that quiet moment, she wasn't thinking about any of that. She was thinking about respect, about dignity, about the simple human courtesy of treating others with kindness, especially when they're extending that same courtesy to you. She had offered Harry a platform, a chance to share his voice, and he had rejected it in the most public way possible. But she had also shown millions of viewers what it looked like to stand up for yourself without stooping to cruelty. She had set boundaries without being vindictive. She had maintained her professionalism even when provoked. As she finally stood to leave, one of the younger crew members approached her hesitantly. "Miss Welch, I just wanted to say thank you for what you did today. Denise smiled, a real smile this time. You never have to accept being treated badly, love. Remember that. The crew member nodded, clearly moved by the words. As Denise gathered her things and headed for the exit, she felt a sense of peace settling over her. The interview had been a disaster, but she knew she had done the right thing. She had protected her peace, defended her colleagues, and refused to be a doormat for someone's misplaced anger. The studio doors closed behind her, and the day that had started with such promise and ended in such chaos was finally over.